Hello and welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate podcast. You've got myself and Jim Riley here. Rod, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Jim. Thanks for asking.
Hold. You know what I just did, right? I said I got myself and Jim Riley here. Hey,
Okay.
everybody. It is Jim Riley and Rod Kuntz on the show today, and we're happy to be here. We're well into the new year. I say well into the new year, Rod, because we're 6 days in, but you and I have already been digging deep in our businesses, right? I mean,
It
we're after it.
it doesn't seem like 6 days. I feel like I'm well into, just like you said, well into the new year.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm sure you're well into some date nights with your wife and plenty of family time, which I know last night we had horse riding lessons with the girls. So when I say well into the work year, that means we're getting stuff done in a timely manner and allowing ourselves to spend time with family and friends.
Absolutely. And there's time for both, but you have to be as conservative and protective of your family schedule as you have to be with your work schedule. And
Good.
that's where real balance comes in. You have
Yeah.
to protect both of those schedules.
Good point. Monday on the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, we had a really robust call on discipline. I say robust because I spoke and I spoke for a while. It's actually one of my more impassioned speeches about discipline and how important it is. And if you haven't considered becoming a member of the syndicate yet, we'd love to have you. It's priced right. We meet every Monday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But if you can't be there on Mondays, we record all the shows. So that content comes back to you. And Rod and I and our other partner, Rachel, we're all accessible to you. So just know that. But getting back to the conversation, Rod, I want to dig in a little bit deeper on discipline than what we did on Monday's call. So if you are a member, I'm hoping that you're listening to this because I had a few additional thoughts. And Rod, why don't you think about if you wanted to add anything that didn't get caught on Monday night? Because here's where my head's at. I realized that, we talked about discipline in a way that, it'll help you achieve your goals. If you can be disciplined and follow through on a daily basis, the things that you set out to do, and doing the hard stuff, getting up every morning and, getting after your task list or your health or your, exercise and all those things, eventually this stuff will pan out for you. What I realized though, is I speak about 75 hard so often because I think it's a great mental strengthening program and there's a lot of value. And if you don't have any discipline in your life, that's a great place to start. Great place because it'll start developing habits over a period of 75 days. And what I was thinking about as an added value is the discipline that's created over 75 days. And then you stop and then maybe you do it again. And then you stop and then maybe you do it again. Eventually you start closing that gap of time that you lack discipline. And it becomes more of a everyday, practice. So,
Right.
looking back at if you can focus on discipline this year, make that your primary objective. However you choose to become more disciplined, I've given you a couple ideas. Just know that the longer you do it, the more will come into play on a regular basis and you will see the rewards. And then eventually it will become a lifestyle. And
Right.
that's how you find extremely successful people. It's funny. I know a lot of wealthy individuals that have great companies and they're working their tail off every single day. Well, guess what? That's what it takes. You have to continue to work your tail off every day to maintain that level of success, because if you don't, you'll see that crumble. And I want to reiterate that because we're too caught up in what we see on the internet as what we think is success. And the reality is we're designed to work hard, be disciplined, and be these great human beings, not only for our work life, but for our family life. So those are my extra thoughts. I got a few more, but I want to hear from you, Rod.
Well, I think I've given that a lot of thought, actually. You and I had a brief conversation yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. I don't know. The year is already a blur. To me, discipline is a habit. It has to be habit. A discipline, it's almost synonymous with habit if you think about it. And there are so many things that we tend to let slide. And that's why I talk about accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Accountability and discipline are two, one's the left foot, one's the right foot. You have to be walking and accountability to be really walking in discipline. And if you can't be accountable to yourself, then programs help, like 75 Hard. That helps you build that discipline, that habit, so you have a program to be accountable to. At the end of that program, that's when we can let things slide. We have to look for other ways of being accountable. But by then you have the habits that keep you in stride.
Yeah.
And that's just it. Those programs will help you, like 75 Hard. I've done 180, and we've not talked a lot about that, but it's similar but different. But it does get you into a habit. And
Mm-hmm.
once that habit solidified, now things become easier. They become second nature. You don't have to think about it. It doesn't become work. It's like breathing. It's not work to breathe. It's not work for your heart to beat, right?
Yeah.
It's subconscious. You want to work these things so that it's subconscious. And the other thought that I just had on that too, and we talked about balance, work-life balance, and that fallacy, right? You have to work hard. But when you're working hard, you also have to be disciplined to keep enjoying your work.
Mm-hmm.
I see some people, you see that they're really working hard and they dive in, but if they're stressed out and anxious and mad and angry, then they're not disciplined like they should be, because there's a mental and emotional and psychological discipline that comes, to me, I'll call it whole body discipline. Let's coin that term here for Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, whole body discipline, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a physical and the habits of things we do. It's the mental. It's staying disciplined with your attitude, staying disciplined with being grateful, staying disciplined with being on task, staying disciplined with listening to other people and being an active listener and that sort of thing. So that's my whole goal, is I want to be well disciplined. And to me, that means all of it, not just work. Anyone can throw themselves into work until they're exhausted. That's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. And by the way, discipline, once it becomes a habit, does not mean that every day is a perfect day. But what it means to me is when I realize when I've fallen short. Okay, today's a perfect example. I didn't forgot to set my alarm, and I woke up an hour and a half later than what I'd normally wake up. In other words, I normally wake up at 5 a.m. Now it's 6:30, and I'm scurrying to get the kids ready to get them off to school. And I realized, well, I lost that hour and a half. And within that, I know that I have to make up that time because I lack the discipline to get up today, and it was an accident, right? So I don't want people to think that once you achieve some discipline that you live this perfect life and you don't have to maintain it and you don't have shortcomings. But tomorrow, you better believe I'm going to make sure my alarm is set and I'm back up, and I'm not going to lose that hour and a half of productivity that I lost today. And it can be made up in other ways, but identifying where your shortcoming is because you have that discipline in your life. And I'm not going to change my schedule later today because it's family time and the things that we've already planned. What I'm going to do is try to speed up some of the things that I'm doing throughout the day or make up for them tomorrow. But we all fall short. It's identifying when you fall short and knowing how to come out of that. And I think that often, especially this time of year, we set ourselves up for our New Year's resolution and our goals. What are we going to do this year? And day 2 or 3, our buddies are already, hey, come over. It's, let's go have some beers, or, rodeos tonight. Let's go to the rodeo and have some Coors. It's easy to fall off quickly. It's going to require that discipline. But if you do fall off, it's okay to get started again the next day.
Yes.
Don't think that all is lost. And the next thing you know, 3 months later, you're going, oh, fell off that program and I put those 10 pounds back on, or I never lost those 10 pounds, or whatever it is, right? If you fall off, you can get right back in the saddle the next day.
Discipline is a decision. That's what it comes down to. So 2 things. You just brought that up. And discipline is one of those things that we can be so disciplined with our schedules that we can lose sight of what is also important, and that's to be flexible. And that can come in terms of family issues. I can tell you, deaths in my family have always happened at the most inopportune times,
Yeah.
right? Not just for the person who passed away, but also when it comes to things that were happening with travel, things that were happening with assignments due, dance conventions that we were going to, things. You have to have some sort of flexibility with your discipline and understand that things, like you said, it's not perfect. We're not perfect, and the world's not going to abide by our schedule. We have to be flexible enough and disciplined enough to know that we can get through that we can adapt and change, that we can shift. And that's what makes you successful. If you miss that, catching that first wave, right? You talk about being a surfer and
Yeah.
making that decision, but if you hit it wrong and you miss it, you know what? You don't, go back to the beach and put your shoes on and go home. You go back out and catch another one. It happens. You have to go back out and catch another wave. And they're out there to catch. There's always another wave to catch.
That's
So
right.
pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go at it again and again and again.
So, Rod, I'm going to take a left turn here on discipline. So, if you're listening, I hope you caught the message on discipline. Would again love to have you on Young Entrepreneurs, where we cover things like discipline and how to build those habits and traits. So, here's my left turn. It's something I heard yesterday. It was talking about retirement and the misnomer of retirement for entrepreneurs, right? And I'm going to come clean. When I sold my, I didn't sell. What I did is I stepped away from my tequila company, and I had a great exit package. And that exit package allowed me to pretend, I'll say at this point, that I was going to retire. I talked to my wife. I said, look,
Right.
this money's going to put us off into the sunset. And the reality, especially with inflation and everything else, the reality is that that wasn't exactly the case. But you start talking about that. And I'm looking at you, Rod, because I know that you're retired, but I know that you're an entrepreneur. And this is the message I want people to hear, is that if you truly are an entrepreneur, or if you believe in the value of hard work with a reward at the end of the day, right? We work hard, and at the end of the day, we feel the reward from our efforts, right? If you believe in those two things, we're destined, and I don't want anybody to think that this is a negative thing. We're destined to work most of our lives. And the reason why, because as an entrepreneur, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything other than what I'm doing right now. And what I mean by that is I'm starting new businesses. I can't tell a dozen businesses since I thought I was going to retire in 2017, leaving my tequila company. A dozen businesses. I can't help myself. I love what I do. And what's been great about it is it's allowed me to tailor my life around my family and have the joy of both, right? And I feel like I'm going to be an entrepreneur until my dying day. And if you think you're an entrepreneur and you think that you're going to retire and do nothing one day, then you're not truly an entrepreneur. And again, I'm looking at Rod in the Zoom call here. I'm going, well, Rod is what he calls maybe retired, but he's an entrepreneur. He started a business with me. He grabbed an extra job just so he would have a paid workout. So, Rod, again, it's a left turn, but what are your thoughts on that? Because I just don't see myself stopping what I'm doing, which is work in essence.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And to me, I get satisfaction and joy out of work. I do. And part of my work is I deal with people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get your satisfaction and enjoyment out of helping other people, how can you stop? How can you say, I'm going to be done with that? And I mentioned to you before, Jim, that I don't feel like I'm retired. Okay. I'm old enough to be retired, Social Security age, the whole works. I don't need another job. However, I can't not. I'm like you. I have to be doing something. I have to be productive. And that's where I get my self-actualization. If you look back at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's the top, self-actualization. I get self-actualization every day by doing something that I love to do. And my wife is the same way. We've had this discussion for decades. We've had this discussion, and both of us know and have known that we will never retire. And by retire, I mean, I've had parents and in-laws that have retired, and, they golf and they travel a little bit and that sort of thing. Well, I still do that.
Yeah.
Right. I don't golf, but I do other stuff. I
Yeah.
still do that. But why would I stop doing what I love to do other things that I enjoy? It doesn't make sense. So, there's satisfaction and joy in that. And if you're looking for that golden parachute at the end of the road and you want to retire by 30, The first time I retired, it was like semi-retired. I was 34. You can't stop. You're at your peak. You have to do something.
Yeah.
So be productive and share yourself with the world. Share your gifts, share your passion with the world, and keep driving forward. Find things that interest you and that help other people. That's where the joy is. And you want to get rich? That's where the riches come from. Riches come from helping other people.
Well, and how many miserable people do we know that have retired and they're on the couch doing nothing? And that's a little bit
Crotchety
of
old men.
yeah, and I think they're fewer and fewer. We can approach this differently as we get older. I'm going to be turning 55 this month, and I thought, after listening to this yesterday, I never want to do anything other than what I'm doing right now. And what's great about what I'm doing right now is I can use all the experience that I've gained over my 40 years of working, 40 plus years of working, and give value to other people, to help other people, to create jobs for other people, to create economy,
Right.
and show people what I've done and teach them to do the same things. And I think that if we can change our mentality, and I'm speaking to people in my age group and up, if we can change our mentality about what retirement is or what it means, we can bring so much more value to the world around us. And I would love to see that. And I want to talk about this more on future episodes, but I was just really interested in hearing this yesterday. And I thought, we got to talk about this briefly because, like I said, I'll never retire. And if I can bring more value to people, I think that's the right place for me. And I'd love to see more people doing that.
Not only that, Jim, it's our obligation.
Yeah.
Right? If we're really going to be productive members of society and we want to add value, that's what entrepreneurs do. We add value to things, right? And we get paid for it. If we want to add value to our life, it's going to be in the service of others. And you can't stop doing that.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. Let's be disciplined to not be looking for that carrot. If you're just motivated by a carrot, a random number, when I make $2 million, when I have $3 million in my bank account, when I have my house here and my house there, when I have a boat and a car and whatever, that's not enough. That will never be enough. So you have to have the discipline to have your priorities straight from the beginning.
That's right.
And that means getting your values right.
Well, we've set ourselves up for a whole bunch more future episodes and topics. We'll talk more on this retirement thing later. Rod, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you all for listening in to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate podcast. We try to get these out every single week. Who knows, maybe one day we'll do a few more. We've got Rod set up with some professional equipment now, and not only does he sound good, he looks good. So Rod, congratulations.
For being almost 55, you're not looking bad yourself, Jim.
I appreciate that. Hey, look, if you enjoy the show and what we're talking about, please share it with a friend. If you're interested in finding out more about the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, just hit us up at the website, youngentrepreneurssyndicate.com. We also have a Facebook, Instagram under those same names, and the show is on YouTube. So thanks a lot. Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody.